I'm here with Rich Yori, president of Alkon Corporation. We're going to talk a little bit about DOT fittings and what it means to be DOT compliant. Thanks for joining me, Rich. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Good to see you.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to me a little bit about fittings used in tractors and trailers and what it means to be DOT compliant.
Sure. Happy to do that. Probably the place to start off with is the fittings are used in the air brake systems on tractors and trailers, which are different than cars. Cars use hydraulic brakes. These heavy-duty trucks and trailers, they use air brakes because the systems are inherently safer and more reliable than hydraulic trucks. So when you think about a fitting in those systems, it's a pretty important element, right? Because it's basically between the fittings and the tubing and the hoses. That's how you get the air from the compressor that's connected to the engine usually, down to the brakes in the truck and out to the trailer and down to the brakes on the trailer as well. So kind of a key element. And over the years, if a fitting fails, it can have some pretty bad consequences. So in an effort to improve road safety, the National Transportation of Highway Traffic Safety Administration, something like that, it's NHTSA for short, right? It's a subset of the Department of Transportation, DOT, right? And so that's how you get the DOT fitting moniker. They outlined some regulations that basically were a set of minimum requirements for fittings to ensure that ensure safe operation on the road. So that's what a DOT fitting is. It's a fitting that is marked with DOT, and that signifies that it meets these minimum requirements by the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, so basically, if your fitting leaks, you don't have air to your brakes, you don't have brakes.
That's correct. Yeah.
Sounds pretty important.
Yeah, it's a relatively important part of the whole system.
Yeah. All right. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but why is complying with these regulations so important?
Well, as you point out, if the brakes don't have air, the brakes don't work, right? So that's really important. And it's the fittings need to work with the tubing and with the hoses together to ensure trouble-free operation under all conditions. And the conditions are pretty harsh. So the regulations were put in place because there were failures out there, and hoses were popping off, tubing was coming off, and emergency brakes were kicking on. Once you lose air pressure, that puts the truck into a skid. And unfortunately, there were some pretty nasty accidents.
Yeah, sounds pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
With all this together, what message would you want to leave our distributors with, since they're the ones that are selling this product into the smaller OEMs, as well as the fleet guys who are operating every day, replacing this product as needed?
Good question. No, there's a couple of things. I think, the first thing that they need to understand is that when a reputable fitting manufacturing company like Alkon applies the DOT label to a fitting, that's been backed up by years of development and a lot of testing that goes into that to ensure that we meet the requirements set forth by the DOT. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing is that compliance is on the honor system. Okay, so it's really important to know who makes your DOT fittings. You better be buying your fittings from somebody that you trust, because it's just really easy to, there is no third party independent agency out there regulating this or making sure that, hey, this fitting says DOT, but it actually doesn't meet the requirements. So I think the other element that our distributors need to be aware of is, over the past several years, we've definitely noticed an increase in fittings marked DOT being sold in America that are manufactured by small companies overseas. What they've done is they've basically copied reputable manufacturer's product and labeled it DOT. And because it's on the honor system, they can go ahead and register with the DOT. There's no proof that these things meet the requirements. And they've started to sell those into the U.S. domestic market. And I think that's pretty concerning. So honestly, that's probably the biggest thing I would say is a key takeaway is, I know I personally would not want that big rig behind me to have imported fittings on it that may very well not meet these requirements when I get into a panic stop situation with my family. And I'm sure nobody else would like that either.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, for the fleets, they need to understand, just because they're buying a product from a U.S. distributor, that doesn't mean they're getting a U.S. product that has gone through all this and meets everything that it should.
That absolutely. It's not who you buy it from. It's who manufactures it. And if you don't know who manufactures your fitting, you're putting yourself at risk.
And your family. Well, great. I appreciate your time today, Rich, and more to come on our DOT fittings as we continue the series.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.